3 weeks ago, I thought my grandparents were the most honorable people who ever lived. Today, I'm sitting here wondering if I should burn the memoir that shattered everything I believed about my family's legacy. My name is Caroline, I'm 28, and I just inherited more than I bargained for when my grandmother passed away last month. Grandma Ruth and Grandpa William were the foundation of our family. Married for 67 years, they were the couple everyone aspired to be: devoted, principled, generous to a fault. Grandpa was a decorated World War II veteran who built a successful construction company from nothing. Grandma was the town librarian who volunteered at every charity and never missed a Sunday service. When Grandma died peacefully in her sleep at 89, we all grieved the loss of our family matriarch. But we also celebrated a life well lived, a legacy of integrity and love that would guide our family for generations. That was before I found the memoir. I was helping clean out their house when I discovered it tucked away in the back of Grandpa's old desk. A leather-bound journal with, "For my family, the truth about our story," written in Grandma's careful handwriting on the cover. My first instinct was excitement. What a treasure! Grandma's own words about their incredible life together, their journey through the Depression, the war years, building their business and raising 5 children. I imagined sharing it at family gatherings, reading passages at Christmas dinner, preserving their voices for future generations. I should have left it for the whole family to discover together. Instead, I took it home, poured myself a glass of wine, and settled in for what I expected to be a beautiful evening of reminiscing. The memoir started exactly as I'd expected. Grandma wrote about meeting Grandpa at a church dance in 1952, their courtship through letters while he served in Korea, their wedding in the town's old Methodist church. Her words painted a picture of young love, simple pleasures, and modest dreams. But by page 47, everything changed. Asterisk. I need to write the truth now, because I may never have the courage again. Our family was built on a lie, and someday, someone needs to know what really happened in 1957. William came home from work that Tuesday in March with blood on his shirt and terror in his eyes. "Ruth," he said, "we need to leave town, tonight." I was 8 months pregnant with Danny, and I thought he'd lost his mind. Leave town? We had a house, his business was finally taking off, our whole life was in Millbrook. "I killed a man today," he told me. "It was an accident, but nobody will believe me." The man was Marcus Delacroix, the son of the wealthiest family in 3 counties. Marcus had been harassing our workers, throwing around his father's money and his family's influence to try to force William to sell the construction company for a fraction of its worth. That afternoon, Marcus had shown up at the construction site drunk, threatening William with a pistol, saying the Delacroix family would run us out of town one way or another. In the struggle that followed, the gun went off. Marcus was dead, and William was the only witness. "His father will have me hanged," William said. "Rich man's son dead at the hands of a nobody construction worker? They'll never let me live to see a trial." We packed everything we could fit in the truck and drove through the night. By morning, we were 400 miles away in Cedar Falls, Iowa, with new names and a story about being war refugees looking for a fresh start. William became Bill Matthews. I became Rose Matthews. We told everyone that William had died in Korea and I'd remarried his best friend who took his name to honor him. It explained why I kept talking about my William, and why Bill seemed to carry so much grief. Danny was born 6 weeks later as Daniel Matthews. Our other children, Carol, Janet, Robert, and Susan, grew up never knowing their real last name was Harrison, not Matthews. For 23 years, we lived in fear that the truth would catch up to us. William jumped every time a police car drove by. I never could bring myself to make close friends, terrified that someone would ask too many questions about our past. Then in 1980, William read in a newspaper that Marcus Delacroix's father had died, and the family had lost their fortune in some business scandal. The man who could have destroyed us was gone, and his family's influence had died with him. We could have reclaimed our real names then, told our children the truth, stopped living a lie. But by then, we'd been the Matthews family for over 2 decades. How do you tell your adult children that their entire identity is built on their father's crime and their parents' deception? So we kept the secret. We took our shame and our fear and we buried it so deep that sometimes even I forgot we were living a lie. But I need someone to know that William Harrison was not a murderer. He was a good man who made one terrible mistake and spent the rest of his life trying to atone for it. Every kindness he showed, every charitable dollar he gave, every moment he spent being the best husband and father he could be, it was all his way of balancing the scales for a life that was taken too soon. We were not the people you thought we were. But maybe, in the end, we became the people we were meant to be. I read that passage 3 times before it sank in. My grandparents, the most honest people I'd ever known, had built their entire lives on a lie. My grandfather, whom I'd idolized as a paragon of virtue, had killed someone and fled town to avoid the consequences. But the memoir didn't end there. Over the next 200 pages, Grandma detailed their life in Cedar Falls, and slowly, a more complex picture emerged. Grandpa hadn't just been running from his past, he'd been running toward redemption. Every major decision they made was influenced by their secret shame. When they donated anonymously to build the children's wing of the local hospital, it was because Grandpa never got over taking Marcus Delacroix's life before he could become a father himself. When Grandpa insisted on hiring veterans and ex-convicts at his construction company, giving them second chances when no one else would, it was because he knew what it was like to carry unbearable guilt. When they took in my teenage Uncle Robert after his parents died, and later my cousin Sarah when her mother couldn't care for her, it was their way of creating the family they felt they'd stolen from Marcus Delacroix. The memoir revealed that everything I'd admired about my grandparents, their generosity, their refusal to judge others, their quiet humility despite their success, had grown directly from their shared secret. They weren't naturally saintly people. They were deeply flawed humans who'd spent 67 years trying to earn forgiveness for a crime that may not even have been a crime. 3 days after reading the memoir, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove to Millbrook and spent a weekend researching what had really happened in March 1957. The public library's newspaper archives told a different story than the one Grandma had written. According to the Millbrook Gazette, Marcus Delacroix had died in a hunting accident while alone in the woods. His body was found with a single gunshot wound, and the death was ruled accidental after a brief investigation. There was no mention of William Harrison, no indication that anyone had ever been suspected of foul play. If my grandfather had stayed in town, he might never have faced any consequences at all. But there was more. I spent hours reading about the Delacroix family, and the picture that emerged was troubling. Marcus had a history of violence, multiple arrests for assault and battery, several incidents involving threats against local businessmen who wouldn't bow to his family's influence. The hunting accident theory never made much sense. Marcus was found in the woods behind the construction site where my grandfather worked, not in any area known for hunting. Reading between the lines of 1950s journalism, it seemed likely that the local authorities suspected foul play but couldn't prove it and weren't particularly motivated to investigate the death of the town's biggest troublemaker. I also found something Grandma hadn't known when she wrote the memoir. In 1983, 3 years after they could have reclaimed their real names, a man named James Delacroix, Marcus's younger brother, had published a small book about his family's history. In it, he wrote, "My brother Marcus was not a good man. He terrorized half the businessmen in our county, used our family's money and influence to hurt innocent people, and died as he lived, causing pain to others. I have spent my adult life trying to undo the damage he did to our family's reputation. If someone killed Marcus in self-defense, I would not blame them. I would thank them for ridding the world of a man who should never have had the power to hurt others. My grandfather had spent 67 years carrying guilt for killing a man whose own brother thought the world was better without him. When I got back home, I faced the question that had been eating at me since I first read the memoir. What do I do with this information? My parents, aunts, and uncles all remember Grandma and Grandpa as Bill and Rose Matthews. They have no idea their father was actually William Harrison, that their family name was stolen from a dead man, that their entire childhood was built on their parents' shared lie. My cousin Danny, now 66 years old and named for the fake identity his parents created, has built his own family legacy around the Matthews name. His children and grandchildren carry a name that isn't rightfully theirs. But here's what I keep coming back to. Does any of that actually matter? The people my grandparents became in Cedar Falls were real, even if their names were fake. The love they showed their children, the kindness they extended to their community, the business they built that employed hundreds of people over the decades, none of that was a lie. They may have started as William and Ruth Harrison, but they truly became Bill and Rose Matthews. The fear and guilt that drove them to hide their past also drove them to become better people than they might have been otherwise. I've been carrying this secret for 3 weeks now, and I still don't know what to do with it. Part of me feels like my family deserves to know the truth about their origins. Part of me thinks the truth would only cause pain and confusion for people who are happy with the story they've always known. Last Sunday, I went to the family dinner we have every week at Uncle Danny's house. I watched my 66-year-old uncle tell stories about Dad's construction company, watched my Aunt Carol show old photos of Mom and Dad's 50th wedding anniversary, watched my cousin Sarah, the girl Grandma and Grandpa took in, talk about how grateful she was for the Matthews family legacy. They all spoke about Grandma and Grandpa with such love, such pride in the family they built. And I sat there knowing that everything they thought they knew about their parents was both completely false and completely true. The memoir is hidden in my apartment now, along with the research I did in Millbrook. Every day, I have to decide again whether to share it or burn it. Some days, I think the truth always deserves to come out, that my family has a right to know their real history. Other days, I think some secrets die with the people who made them, and the kindest thing I can do is let my grandparents rest in peace with the identities they chose. Grandma ended her memoir with this line: "I pray that whoever reads this will understand that we were not perfect people, but we tried every day to be worthy of the second chance we gave ourselves." Maybe that's the real truth about family legacies. We're all just imperfect people trying to be worthy of the chances we've been given, trying to balance the scales for our mistakes, trying to become the people we want to be remembered as. The scandal isn't that my grandparents were criminals. The scandal is that they were human, flawed, frightened, desperate people who made the best choices they could with the information they had. And maybe that's a legacy worth protecting, even if it means carrying their secret to my own grave. But I'm torn, and I'm curious what you would do in my position. If you discovered that your family's entire identity was built on a lie, even a lie that led to decades of good deeds and genuine love, would you expose the truth? Do families have a right to know their real history, even if that knowledge might destroy the foundation of everything they believe about themselves? What would you do if you held the power to either preserve your family's peace or shatter their sense of identity in the name of truth?